The first thing Karen Whitmore did after stepping onto my brand new deck was wrinkle her nose like she'd smelled something rotten. "This is not approved," she announced, arms crossed, sunglasses sliding slowly down her nose as she looked at me over the rims. "And it will need to be removed immediately." I stood there, coffee in hand, staring at the deck I'd spent the last 4 months planning, permitting, and building. Composite boards, reinforced footings, custom railing, every detail signed off by the city. I hadn't even invited her onto it. She'd simply marched through my side gate at 8:12 a.m. on a Saturday like she owned the place. "For what reason?" I asked calmly. Karen flipped open her red HOA binder, the one she carried everywhere like a weapon. "Section 4.17, unauthorized exterior structures that alter the visual harmony of the neighborhood." Visual harmony. Behind her, my neighbor's yards featured a plastic flamingo army, a rusted boat trailer, and one inflatable snowman still standing in April. "This deck doesn't violate HOA rules," I said, "and it's fully permitted by the city." Karen smiled, the kind of smile that meant she'd already decided I was wrong. "Oh, honey, city permits don't override HOA authority." That was my first mistake, thinking this was about rules. I'd moved into Brookhaven Ridge 8 months earlier, a quiet subdivision with mature trees and, allegedly, a reasonable HOA. I'd checked the bylaws twice before buying, specifically to make sure I could build a deck. Nothing prohibited it. Height limits? Met. Setback requirements? Exceeded. Materials? Approved list. The deck wasn't flashy, it was functional, but it overlooked a small wooded area instead of another house, which Karen hated. From the moment construction started, she hovered. First, it was concerns about noise, then complaints about debris, a single 2x4 leaning against my fence, then photos, lots of photos, taken from my yard without permission. Every interaction ended the same way. "This isn't over." 2 weeks after the deck was finished, the official notice arrived. "Final warning, remove unapproved structure within 14 days or face daily fines. $250 per day." I requested a hearing. Karen chaired it. She sat at the head of the folding table in the clubhouse, flanked by 2 board members who avoided eye contact. She presented grainy photos, misquoted bylaws, and confidently declared that my deck encroached on protected sight lines. I slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were stamped city permits, surveys, HOA bylaws with highlights, and structural drawings. Karen didn't even look. "I don't need an architect to tell me when something doesn't belong," she said. "The board agrees with me." "That's funny," I replied, standing up, "because my architect will be here next week, and he literally helped write the county code your argument is based on." The room went silent. Karen laughed sharply. "Bring whoever you want." So I did, and that's when everything started to unravel. The following Thursday, Karen showed up early. She always did when she thought she had an audience. The clubhouse filled quickly, neighbors whispering, folding chairs scraping the floor, Karen seated front and center with her binder stacked like a legal fortress. She looked smug, confident, untouchable. Then my architect walked in. Evan Clark. Gray hair, calm eyes, tailored blazer. He'd designed municipal buildings, served on the County Planning Commission, and, most importantly, helped draft the residential deck code Karen kept misquoting. Karen's smile flickered. "This is Evan Clark, the architect who designed my deck." Karen sniffed. "We don't need opinions. The HOA has already—" "Actually," Evan interrupted gently, "I'm not here to give an opinion. I'm here to explain the law." The room went dead silent. He plugged in his tablet and projected the deck plans on the wall. Clearances, elevations, setbacks, load calculations. Then he pulled up the HOA bylaws Karen had cited. Section 4.17 applies only to unpermitted structures that alter shared sightlines. This deck is permitted, privately situated, and does not obstruct any neighboring views. Karen shot up from her chair. That's not how we interpret it. Evan nodded. Interpretation doesn't override written code, especially when the code mirrors the county ordinance, which I helped write. Murmurs rippled through the room. Karen tried again. The height is excessive. Evan zoomed in. Maximum allowed is 12 feet from grade. This deck is 9 feet 4 inches. I personally measured it yesterday. Karen's binder slammed shut. This is harassment, she snapped, glaring at me. You manipulated the process. At that point, one of the board members finally spoke. Karen, did you verify any of this before issuing fines? She didn't answer. Another board member leaned forward. Did you enter his property without permission? Still nothing. The treasurer cleared his throat. And why were fines issued before a compliance hearing? Karen's voice cracked. Because someone has to protect this neighborhood. Evan quietly handed the board one last document. A formal letter stating that any attempt to force removal of the deck would expose the HOA to legal liability, including damages. The vote took less than 2 minutes. All fines revoked, deck approved retroactively, formal apology issued. Karen stormed out before the meeting ended. The aftermath was quieter, but sweeter. 2 weeks later, the HOA updated its rules to prevent unilateral enforcement. Karen resigned soon after, citing stress. I hosted my first deck barbecue that weekend. Half the neighborhood showed up. As the sun set, Evan raised his glass and smiled. Never argue with someone who helped write the rule book. And Karen, she never looked at my deck again. Your support means everything. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel.